Welcome to Tech at Lunch, the podcast that satisfies your hunger for all things tech while you enjoy your midday meal. So grab your sandwich, tune in, and let's dig in.
Hello, I'm Nick.
Hey, I'm John.
And this week we don't have Ed. He is taking care of some family stuff, and it's the same week as Thanksgiving, so we can't really expect a lot of stuff. That's why we're
That's
having to
tough.
do a lot of things with technology so we can actually get things done a little bit faster.
Hmm.
But, last week we kind of closed out, I guess you could say a small chapter in the whole additive manufacturing space, and that is filaments. Um, and this week we're going to go down the rabbit hole of still within when you talk about sustainability and stuff like that, we are talking about peripherals. So,
Yeah.
when you start talking
Mhm.
about snips, the rubber hot covers on your hot ends, which
Socket.
God forbid,
Yeah.
the socks, God forbid, the extruder itself, the hot end, the fans,
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff that you could get with your print. Like if you asked me, hey, I got a 3D printer. What else do I need? I'm gonna say, well, there's probably a kit that comes with it. Number one, that kit that comes with it's probably the cheap kit, right? They never give you, like, they don't give you a full wrench set when you
Mm,
get like a couch, right? Like IKEA doesn't give you a socket. They give you the
mm-mm.
cheapest flat wrench with two sizes on either side so you can use both sides, and it's gonna hurt your hand a little bit when you try to put that thing in there. So they gave you the cheapest stuff that and the stuff that would fit in the box, right? Because they can make the price more affordable to the customer. But for me, I think all those things you probably could buy a better one, you know.
Yeah,
And also you probably can get extra tools that weren't or extra tools, extra parts that weren't in that kit that just only make your life easier. Like I mean, the first thing you said I thought of when you said peripheral is like a multiple material unit. I was like, oh, are we talking like add-ons, like big machine unit add-ons? No, I mean, yeah, actually, that can count. I would say as a peripheral, like it assists the process, right? It might even help finish the process. But I also think on the smaller scale is like I think those snips are important. I think having some sandpaper to finish off a 3D print is like a necessity. You need that, but I would say more apt name for a peripheral, like a filament storage container. Like, where are you gonna put the filament?
yeah,
Like, you gotta like contain this and make sure that you have humidity controlled, environment. And what's easier than making that room smaller? Put it in a container, get a Rubbermaid container, cut a hole in it, and have a place, or maybe not cut a hole in it. Have a place where you could put a diffuser or a dehumidifier nearby, and it can just make sure that there's no humidity or water or moisture anywhere near your filaments. So like that's kind of some of the first things that like you should honestly get, because yeah, you'll get one thing of filament and then you're going to use it. And then what next? You're going to buy more filament. We've already talked about what you should or shouldn't do, and if you don't know, you should go listen to those podcasts as well. Or you can shoot us an email. We'll answer those too. But um, you're going to need new filament, right?
right.
So what are you gonna do with it? How are you gonna take care of it? You can't just. I mean, we like the stuff that's plug and play, right, Nick? Like I like, you keep the same brand, performs the same way. I can expect the same thing. But what happens when you switch brands? You switch filament types and things like that. And what happens when you need a filament? You have filament that needs to be dried as it prints,
Yeah, that's
right?
where you get a little bit interesting.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of where my head goes. Is those first off, it was like those little electronic pieces that you can add, like a filament storage container with like a humidity control or,
Run out
or
sensors and stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah. See, that's actually brilliant. I something I never knew I needed until I had it, right?
Like I
So I
don't have
feel the
one, but I
front.
know I need it.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Because like we have times where the printer's still going and there's no filament in left to pull, and it's like, yeah, all done,
Yep.
but half the model's missing. So,
Yeah. It's like the cameras that you can get that do
ah,
spaghetti
good.
detection.
Yeah,
That's something that I know I need,
Yeah.
but haven't done it yet. But I really wonder if, since sometimes we've been having lately issues where it's like, so I'm printing this, but it clogs, and then my printer just runs by itself.
Yeah, it thinks nothing's wrong. The hot end extruder and then the motors are still like, no, following the path, following the path. But
Exactly.
the extruder says I got nothing left. So, um, to be honest with you though, like yeah, that filament runout sensor, it came stock on the Anycubic Chiron. I love it. Also, it lets me know when I have any issues, so it's pretty nice. And you know, if you get a nicer sensor, it does don't they measure distance as well, and they'll tell you like, hey, you've had about blah 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 meters come through, and that's about they'll have if you input density, then you can figure out what your weight is, you
Yep.
know? So I can see that this print's gonna take this long, it's gonna weigh this much, I have this much material, I could do this. I mean, that's great actually. But but tell me, do you have so spaghetti detection? We can go into detail or a little bit more detail in that. You're saying having a camera allows for that, but I think there's more than just the camera you need, don't you?
Yeah. You have to have
Does it only
the
run with Clipper?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff runs on Marlin, which is stock. I understand, but
It's a
I don't know.
version
I was
of.
just curious. Yeah, um,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, I think it does, but you have to have like what's it called? Cloud service or something like that for it, so you can get to it remotely.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. So you'll connect it into your Wi-Fi, and it'll have like probably some type of API that you got to enter in and
Hmm.
allow you through. I think honestly, that's how a lot of like I know we're kind of digressing a little bit, but when I had Octopi and Octoprint, the Octopi app on my phone needed an API to kind of communicate through, right? So in that sense, I did need some type of extra piece on my phone, and I'm pretty sure it ran only with the mother or the Raspberry Pi. So I needed that peripheral too. I could call those electronics, but we'll have another episode where we go into detail more on the Pis and stuff like that, right? But yeah, I think I think it's a necessity to have a camera.
Yeah, I know camera, at least the bare bones camera. Yes.
If not just satisfying when you do a time lapse, right? Like I want to see my print go layer by layer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that you're the only one with a working camera. Moonraker for me and Clipper is seeming to not want to connect anymore. I had to
Really?
re-image Clipper. Yeah, uh it's the file.
Uh,
It's corrupted. I've got to get a new one and reset everything. It's just a pain to do it.
it might just be how it's configured.
Yeah. Hopefully it's simple.
Yeah. If it's
Nothing
plugged into the
crazy.
Raspberry Pi, you should be able just to pull it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Everything, yeah. And I also have an Orange Pi I'm working with because like a Raspberry Pi isn't the only thing that you can have to use with the printer. You can use Orange Pis or Banana Pis or there's a few other models of Apex something. I can't remember the exact mini PC name. Uh, but
You can
they
rest
are
rather
really
than
good.
HPC and if anything.
Yeah, honestly, I was trying to use an old like desktop tower and just use the motherboard there and have so many USBs. I was gonna try to make a little print farm with one tower. However, the computer gave up on me before I got to that point. It
I,
doesn't run anymore, sadly.
I really wonder if if you're able to take like an old server, for example,
Hmm.
and hook up all the printers to an old server to be able to like Dockerize or
Oh man.
virtualize Clipper in large production environments.
Yes, so this is a great question, and I have a great answer for you. That is absolutely right. You can do this. So the reason I say it's not easy, by the way, and there's going to take a little bit of doing to get it done. It's not going to be like simple. You may need to do via or like each Docker. Oh,
Oh, but
did I lose you?
no, I'm here.
Okay, you're still here. I just lost my screen for a second there. Sorry. I thought my power went out. Um,
That would be good.
Yeah, no, everything was off for a second. It might have just been like a surge or something, but it's fine now. I think we're good. Um, and you can still hear me, so I don't think my internet went out either. So.
Yeah, it happens.
But yeah, no, you can Dockerize it. You can set up like or you could yeah, you do VMs. You can spin up a VM for each one. I understand it's still using the same um, RAM, but for a server, servers have so much RAM that like that should be totally fine. So yeah, I this is something that I wanted to do before I went to Clipper. I know Octopi uses a different type of application and API,
Hmm.
but there's something where you can have multiple units tie into one, and they called their application Octofarm. So
Yeah.
it's just like I think I use a similar type of service where it just remotes into each desktop. It's a Vayon,
Hmm.
something similar where each thing will have its own.
Well,
Uh,
in Moonraker, you could do the same thing in Mainsail.
yes, I just have not gotten it to work as well, nor have I needed all the printers to be online at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And the resin printer doesn't connect to Clipper like the others, so
Now that would be
it's
cool.
yeah, right. If that was a bit seamless, I mean, it makes sense, and I bet you there's some work to be done in getting it to connect, because like we've talked about it before, a lot of them are prepped or geared to be Wi-Fi enabled,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. It's gonna take some doing. It's not gonna be a 2-hour job, unless you already have all of your Octopi instances running. It's gonna take a couple hours.
Yeah.
Now, if you have everything running, then you should be able to get it done probably about an hour, and get them all up and running. It's as simple as being able to tie everything back to a main page and have them accessed like dashboards. But yeah, no, that's a great idea. It's a great question, Nick, because that was something I was like, what if I have 6 printers?
Right.
And they're all trying
Start
to run
talking
the
about
same thing.
farming and print
Yeah,
farming and stuff like that, and how you're going to
yeah,
control all that information.
exactly, exactly. And that's the point, right? I mean, we start off with just one printer, a little rinky dink, but if you end up getting something that makes you a little bit more money or makes you have a lot more to print, like it's nice to see all those things, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
how
start
many
getting to
times have you looked at your print at work?
a lot.
Yeah,
It-
exactly.
It's like when you look at Bamboo Labs, for example. Bamboo Labs has figured out a way to set all their stuff up already ready for a print farm type atmosphere.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, they had that in mind. I mean, everybody takes a different like approach to it. Like the Ender series for Creality was like really cost cutting. How can I get this out to as many people as cheap as possible? And then
But it
you
got
get
people into
the
it though.
yeah, exactly. And then you get the step up in the Prusas, and they're like, how do I get this the best quality for the as low a price as I can get it? And that's where the Mark III comes out, right? And the Mark IV is a little bit more pricey, but like the SVO6 started coming out, which is something I would say is comparable to that Prusa Mark
Hmm.
III. So yeah,
Even
it's
though
got to start somewhere.
it's like that's funny that we buy all these printers and then we add more and more and more to it. Um, I still haven't started modifying the Ender 5 yet, but I don't see a need to at the moment.
You said you
It's
didn't modify it,
no.
Clipper.
Yeah, well, do you count that as a modification?
You took all the firmware off the motherboard. The
Yeah,
MCU doesn't have to do it anymore.
I did do that within the first like
Yeah, that
couple
was like
months of owning it.
almost stock for us, right? Why is
Yeah,
Clipper not on there? Well, it's Clipper's so nice. Clipper's so simple to use, and honestly, if you guys are curious about what Clipper is, it's a firmware for our 3D printers, and I think we have an episode on it to be honest
we
with
do.
you at some point. So yeah, you'd be able to check that out. I would say it's the most up to date. I mean, Octopi gave it a run for its money, but like when you look at the two comparison, it's night and day. One's in like early 2000s and the other one's in like the 2020s, right? So that's the big difference I see amongst the two. Because main sail, man, and Clipper, beautiful.
Or
It gives me
Moonraker.
everything I need. Moonrakers, well, I guess I'm not sure. Fluid, I haven't looked at what fluid
Yeah,
is. I think it's some type of connection that way. But yeah,
yeah.
see,
Flu is just another interface. Looks almost identical to be honest with you.
oh, okay. Okay. But
So,
no, the interface is really what got me tied onto that side, and the Clipper gives you so many more, macros.
mhm.
It's just so useful.
It,
But
it's
but we
IT friendly.
digress a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I guess that's the point.
It's it's IT nerd friendly. It's it's you're able to tinker a little bit
Yeah.
more. It gives you a little bit more freedom to really either play or break your stuff. Because you have to really figure out CFG files, configuration files and stuff like that. And which, drags me to, kind of interesting point is as you make changes with your peripherals around your printer, especially, adding filament runout sensors, new hot ends, all that type of stuff. You're gonna have to make these changes to your configuration information, your
Mhm.
.cfg files, if your printer has them available to you, and if you know how.
God, it
So
makes it so much easier. Otherwise, you're gonna probably have to reflash firmware every time. And to be honest with you, this is a much easier way than figuring out how to compile and flash. Uh, so.
yeah, and the thing is, if you think about it, you start dealing with like if you got to go into Marlin, you got to go in there and adjust and print parameters and stuff like that. Then you have the stuff for um the Vorons and stuff like that, and some of the other printers where you're running Clipper. The one good thing is you have systems out there for Marlin like Ulindo, who we talked to at
Mhm.
Rapid. You have their technology going into there now.
Oh yeah. Cause what is a Clipper? We have the This is
Input
it's
shaping.
great. Yeah, you should, yeah, the input shaping. You should listen to that podcast with the CEO Yolindo as well. Like that's crazy. I know it's just telling you to listen to our podcast, which you should do. But
Yeah,
um
she's pretty awesome though.
but yeah, she's great, like self-starter, entrepreneur, had a great, great attitude about the whole, convention, even though they were a smaller company, like only 5 employees, like still had the take on the world mentality. So like, yeah, we like to see that, especially in the up and coming um companies of additive, right? Because those are the ones that are going to do something that we're not expecting, or they're going to give us the product like the like APM Labs gave us, which I would say that's a peripheral. That hot end from
Yeah.
APM,
Oh
I
yeah,
would
yeah,
say that's an accessory, not needed, but I want it.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things
Um,
that we saw at Rapid that I don't need but want.
yeah, it reheats the last layer as you're printing the next layer.
Yeah.
Talk about making it mesh, and talk about making the stability of the print so much better. It just makes sense.
It's like the whole. If I don't know if you saw the Quibi 3D printer now that they got now that actually has active chamber heating.
See, that's something that like we're gonna take for granted at some point. Watch. Like we don't have any chamber heating now, and like we've talked about having to, we figured out how are you gonna heat your chamber. Oh, I'm gonna turn my bed on for a little bit and wait for it to heat up. I mean, that's pretty much how our ovens work, right? We turn the element on and wait for the rest of the enclosure to heat up.
Yeah, they're
So I
talking
mean,
60 degrees Celsius chamber heaters.
yeah, that just makes sense.
And it's so much nicer, and the thing is, y'all, when we start talking about peripherals, you might hear us say, this is what we want, and it really is. There's a lot of stuff we do need or want or stuff that we've played with. For example, probably the best change I made, like I've built a Voron. We all know what goes on behind that. If you're, not stuck in the mud, you understand what's been put into a Voron. But a Voron pretty much is a self-built Core XY, base system. And Core XY is the gantry based system. So if you ever want to look into that, look into the Voron 2.4. December 3rd, though, the Voron releases a new printer.
Oh,
Um,
please don't be a 0.3. I'm gonna lose my mind if it's. I'm still trying to build the little baby one. I mean,
zero
I
point 0.1.
think, yeah, I think I have it ready. I just, it's the hot end is not. Um, you know what?
Nope.
I think I got it. Well, I'll fix it later. I think you just indirectly fixed my printer problem
Well,
for my
there you go.
Voron. Might
Glad
be
I can
done
help.
by next episode. Well, so pretty much, yeah, you remember what you said earlier about changing your firmware and
Yeah.
changing your pins and stuff like that.
hmm
I realized I did not change the pin for the hot end fan.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
So I think that's pretty much why I was getting some heat creep. And I mean, it's gotten to a point where I need to replace the hot end anyways, but it's it's probably clogged.
Mm.
and I just couldn't get it cooled, and that was the problem.
And like I just switched over to probably I could say, and you're running one on your ender is the slice engineering mosquito.
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you right now, greatest piece of kit when it comes down to a hot end. And I'd like to say that, hey, guess what? It's not something that you take for granted, but when when you're able to print high temperatures and funner
Hmm.
filaments, you'll take it for granted a little bit. I just got it, so printed ABS with it the other night, and it runs like a champ. So pretty
Yeah.
happy with it.
It's exciting. It's exciting. And I know we're kind of digressing off the main topic. We kind of nerd out about our printers and stuff like that, but I mean the main point that started this, the filament what did you say? The filament
Filament
heater or
runout
the
sensor.
we started with runout sensor. You were talking about a filament heater, right? Or a
Yeah,
chamber heater, that's what it
yeah, the
was.
chamber heater.
So so yeah, that's another accessory that I think is needed, especially if you're trying to get to these engineering filaments that need to, maintain temperature or that need to be malleable for a little bit longer, or that cool too quickly. To be honest with you, with ABS and ASA, you shouldn't be using your heater fan at all. You're gonna cause some warpage and some issues with the print. But yeah, no, I think that's a great accessory, right? What are some others I would say?
I'll say anything that gets better than the snips they give you when you get the printer.
Oh yeah, I broke my handles like pretty quickly on those. Like it was just a piece of metal afterwards. There was no grips anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I would say uh a, a digital caliper.
Oh yeah.
That's a great one, don't you think?
Yep.
Because
Hell, I got mine sitting right in front of
exactly,
me.
dude. If you don't have a caliper and you're a maker, I mean, honestly, how do you measure stuff? Do you have a speed ruler? But what about the small stuff, you know? I mean, what we talk about dimensional accuracy with filaments. We want to make sure that these things are exact, right? Well, how can we if we don't know what exact looks like, or we can't verify? Like, yeah, digital calipers are a necessity. I don't know. I started using them even before I was printing, like when we would do, um, when you're trying to drill the hole, like the diameter of a hole, you check a screw, and then you're like, okay, well, this should be about good enough, right? You just verify with calipers, or if you're checking for, maybe what size a bolt is, you can use calipers. I mean, honestly, it's easier after you look at them after a while, but measuring them just to verify is always the safest method. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what I used on the mosquito when I installed my mosquito on my ender. Um, to verify the thermistor was the right size, you know?
Like I use the Pittsburgh 6-inch composite ones from Harbor Freight. Um, I know people out there who still use the old digital spin gauge versions,
I'm
just
gonna be
because.
honest with you, I don't know my brand.
I just have mine sitting right in front of me. Is the only reason I said.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but you don't need to have like shit. I think I probably spent oh crud, probably not even like $8 on these,
Hmm.
right? So, but it's to make the point that you don't need to go out and spend a
Right.
buttload of cash on your peripherals. You don't need to. It's not required. Because a lot of stuff, your calipers, your freaking snips, um, your T handles,
Hmm.
are you can save money there. You can buy them from reputable dealers, but you can get them for cheap. If you go look at Harbor Freight, for example, or Home
Yep.
Depot, Black Friday sales,
Yeah, check for Black Friday sales.
if you're in the U.S.
Um, if oh, that's true. Yeah,
If you're not in the U.S.,
unfortunately.
well, sorry. Have fun at work.
Join us in the U.S. um, but yeah, no, that's something, the T handles. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The hex wrenches are very important. Um, uh, these things are vital to, running. I mean, to be honest with you, if you don't have one, a multimeter.
Yep.
Like, if we're talking basic tools, like, I mean, honestly, you should get basic electrician tools. Like, I've used a soldering iron before. on my printer, and whenever I'm trying to add anything to it, or if I have an issue with a wire, most of the time it's a fan has like gotten caught on the print and like ripped off, so I have to resolder in a new fan. That's kind of the most common. But yeah, no, soldering iron, a multimeter just in case to measure, if you're having resistances, if you're wondering why a certain sensor's not catching or turning on, maybe it doesn't have power, maybe it doesn't have a current to it. You should check to see if there's a high resistance on that wire there, because like that'll tell you 110% it's acting like it's an open circuit. So,
And let me tell you something, when you start building a Voron, you're gonna need one.
yeah, you're gonna need that for the heat set. Oh, that's great, great. You just gave him another great use for your soldering iron. I mean, some
Heat
people
sets.
didn't like to use that, but yeah, heat insets or whatever,
Yeah.
brass insets or whatever they're
The
supposed
inserts,
to be
yeah.
called. But those things need to be heated up, and they fit so perfectly when you put them on the end of a soldering iron and then just slowly spin them into place. You
And
know?
if you think about it, with your 3D printer, you can actually build one of the single handle rotating punches that will take your a insetter and push the insetter right down into your filament.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen something like that on YouTube the other day. I'm gonna actually build one. That it hooks up your soldering iron to it, and you can pull it down like a drill press,
Like
and
a
it's
drill press. Oh, I love
and
it.
and it will help set your inserts, your heat inserts, because y'all use a thousand heat inserts for damn near everything.
Yeah, it's so nice because you realize you can't 3D print the bolt. I mean,
Right.
you can. Don't get me wrong.
It won't
I
hold very
have
much, but
my coffee table in my living room is held together with 3D printed nuts and bolts. Okay. Let me tell you, do not sit on that table. They will snap and you will fall. But I'm not using the table for a lot of weight. It's just there, just books and standard things. So the
yeah,
bolts are fine until.
cat
But I
holder.
would, yeah, exactly. It's mostly a cat holder. But it's mostly for to fill out the room. But I would rather metal nuts and bolts on things. But how do I get metal nuts and bolts into a 3D print without stopping the print, laying it into the print, and then hitting play again? That's kind of one way you can embed something without having to use a heat set insert, but or heat insert or whatever. But it's not as easy to do. And if you let the print cool too much and it peels off the bed, then you've just ruined it, right?
Start over.
So yeah, and you have to start over. I mean, I had a friend. I had a friend who had a great idea. He made a baby rattle. He printed half the baby's rattle, and then he put like I don't remember what he put in there. Some rice or something that's gonna you know what I'm saying, that stays really dry and that won't
Hmm.
um that doesn't matter if it breaks up or it's cheap. And they have a baby rattle now.
Yeah, there
Boom.
you go.
It was so he stopped it halfway through, put it in there, and had like sprinkled it in, and then had to keep the print going. But at the end of the day, it's exactly what you need, and it's enclosed in it. So for me, magnets and things like that are probably what I would use that most for, because the heat set insert works very well, and it can kind of you can kind of push it into the print a little deeper depending on what your infill is. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean
Like I
all
just
the
had to do
time.
some the other night because I completely forgot when I printed the mount for my mosquito. I completely forgot to add the heat inserts until I looked at it and went, ooh, need those. Um,
Yeah, what am I gonna mount this to?
Ran to the other room and popped in some heat inserts and away you go. It's stuff that we take for granted. That's, when we start talking about peripherals and stuff like that, it's stuff that we take for granted or kind of just see that we think is kind of interesting. But it's also to think about it is the sustainability side of these peripherals. Some they are throwaways.
Yeah, it's tough.
And that's when we'll get into like your bed probes because those things are literally sometimes a one-time use. Um,
Yeah, pretty
but
off-brand.
yeah, or you use that homing beacon thing that the Vorons came with instead of going to tap. Um, so some of those are kind of one-time use type of things, or they're just cheaply made. However, some things you can use more than once. For example, if you get a hot end that you may not like I have an E3 V6 right here someplace.
Hmm.
Um, no, yeah, right there, that I ripped out of my printer the other day, to replace it with this one. That I can turn around, I can use that for, extrude, like using as an extruder,
Yeah.
as to pull filament through it, to recycle filament. So,
Yeah.
it's always something that you can keep around.
Yeah, there's always something. I mean, everybody gets their own type of quirks, right? And they have their own type of things. I have like for resin. Let's even talk resin printing and peripherals for that. I mean, you need your wash and cure station. Um, you probably need a drying rack or something similar like that at some point. But yeah, I'm using like my drying rack is like some baking sheets. You know what I'm saying? I got cheap baking sheets, and they're fine. They sit on there. They sit in the sun. The wash and cure station came in the bundle, but I realistically I could do that myself, right? I could just get a big tub of isopropyl alcohol. I still had to buy the alcohol anyways, and use that myself. So most of that stuff like brushes, UV lights, like help like fix or post process some of the resin prints. But I'd say those are a little bit less common than I would any of the things we mentioned for the resin printer. A lot
Yeah.
less common.
Yeah. And you start getting into like also one other great thing that people may come across as far as stuff that could be useful with your peripherals that you kind of save, especially if you're having to reconnect into a power source. So instead of helping hands, um, those things are great.
Something
I've
I Yeah, something I didn't know I needed until I used it again.
exactly.
You're like,
Eh,
man, I've been doing this myself.
yeah, and it's like that type of stuff is amazing. It's like people who buy the filament dryers, like you said earlier.
Hmm.
Um, Now that most of the filament dryers now you can print outside the filament dryer. So, you can run it through the filament dryer and into the printer, to keep it dry.
You kind of need to do that for some of the crazier prints too, I
Right.
think.
Either
It's
that
just
or you can
printing
build a
that.
top hat on your printer.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Yeah, and close it in there. See, honestly, that's what I'm saying is like if you're not temperature controlling your filament coming in, or the enclosure temperature, then you're risking some things, especially with the higher filaments. But with the PLA, PETG, and things like that, it's fine. But yeah, you're risking some things. Um, what what were we touching on? We touched about like briefly on it earlier. Oh, I would say a necessity at some point if you're trying to like have like least amount of post processing on a print. Like I don't want to have to print something and go paint it. You need a multiple material unit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it briefly earlier. I don't know if I think we had an episode on where we talked about things like that with filaments or something maybe, but we've brought it up a few times. The multiple material units, it's it's not a requirement, right? But it's something that I would say you need if you want to have less, if you don't want to paint everything, you want it to come out done, ready to go. I'd say you need it.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, it's sadly gonna run you the cost of the printer though.
Well, sometimes.
Depends on your printer, I guess.
Yeah, and depends on which one you buy.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, there's a few out there that you can get and into for a decent price. Um, the and Enraged Rabbit Feeder kit from Voron. You can
Mhm.
buy those at
Mhm.
some places for decently priced. However, you're still having to build it all together, so you better get ready for that expense.
That was gonna be my question because I mean, you said Voron and those guys like to make it
Yeah,
over instead of.
but what is the other one? The Mosaic, I think it is.
Oh, the
Uh,
palette.
the palette. Yeah, and you can do the two color, and the two color is not more than like $300.
That's not that bad. That's not that
But
bad.
when you start getting into like say the Bamboo Labs, that's when it gets kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, if you think you want to get fancy, just get a a Prusa XL, and it comes with it. You
Mm,
just put the spools on the back.
yeah.
I hear you grumbling. It's expensive. I know. You buy once, you cry once.
Yeah, but did you? I don't know. I know I hate to talk about that on the podcast, but I'm going to anyways because why not stir up a little bit of controversy? Um, Especially when it comes down to people who charge way too much money for what the hell they're building. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
I don't know if there's a YouTuber out of Australia. He got one, the Prusa XL, the six chamber, six nozzle, and he said that thing got to him at almost 5,000 US dollars
Oh man.
because of like import fees and the fact that he paid a down payment and then the cost kept going up and up and up and up and up and up, and up until he finally, paid it off.
Jeez.
And he said that he's had to communicate with the Prusa team, which the Prusa team guys are great, I'm telling you.
Yeah, they're
He said
nice
there was
guys.
there's a couple issues, but he says, he said there's definitely some problems. It's definitely still young. It's still, you still got some problems, a lot of problems.
Isn't it still
Uh,
back ordered? I'm pretty sure.
no, they're finally shipping slowly but
Yeah.
surely.
Okay.
But he says I don't want to say it would be worth it at the moment, but it's kind of cool. It's just, like you have the individual heating bed, pieces, but that's about really the more interesting thing. He says right now there's more than good, but they're getting there.
Well, the bed that heats separately, I think that's something only they're doing, and I think that's a great idea though. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I mean, Eh, for me, Prusa was the first innovator for the standard, like I would say, I think it's called Cartesian, like your standard print, like XYZ, where the bed is moving as well as the gantry. Um, he took that and made it something where it was like this is something I could have, you know, plug and play, and I don't have to tinker. So that's like pretty impressive. But I will say, yeah, I mean, the price definitely dictates what I would say how much work you need to put in it. So, um, if it's cheap, if you want to have the best prints, you might have to put a little bit more work into it, right?
right.
Hopefully, I mean that's with some of these other brands, I would be hesitant on paying a high dollar without knowing the product, right?
Now, like the Prusa MMU is great though, given
Oh
its
yeah,
price
it
point.
slaps right on the top of the Mark III. Like I think that's crazy. That's it's so um easy to install, right?
And the orbital extruder that they came out with for the Mark IV and also for the XLs are absolutely amazing.
Right?
It's one
Right?
giant gear and two ball bearings. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Prusa got the Prusa research. They're doing some big things. You should
Yeah.
should always keep an eye on them.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're good
another
people
thing.
too. They're great people when you meet them in person.
I think we mentioned it earlier, but we didn't really go into too much detail. You talked about the mosquito, right?
Hmm.
But there's a peripheral that we got that you didn't mention with that.
The extruder, or you talk about the boron nitride paste,
There's one more thing.
the nozzle.
Mm-mm.
I'm running out of
You got
ideas.
you got the handle thing, the quick
Oh, yeah.
exchange. You got the quick exchange
The
nozzle.
wrench.
So there's been several different versions of this wrench. You probably, if you buy nozzles, you'll get given like some type of it's like a kind of like a zigzag type shape um, nozzle remover. It looks like a wrench, and it just has like a hex bit on pointing in either direction. I've got the same thing that he got from Slice Engineering. It's a nozzle remover, like a quick nozzle remover. It's so much easier than trying to figure out how you're gonna grab that nozzle. And honestly, especially you should be changing your nozzles hot. Like it shouldn't be cold change unless you're like completely stock. Um, and the reason being, if there's any like built up resins, right? So you make sure you can burn those off before um, you break anything. But but yeah, you don't want to just grab it with your hands. You don't I don't A lot of the times that little rinky dink wrench that it comes with is not enough to help you out, right? And if it's at temperature, metal on metal contact is just going to continue to heat up your piece that's cold, right? So at a certain point, that metal piece you're holding is also gonna get hot. So this
Exactly.
thing has a plastic handle. It's got a quick exchange. It's like already a T handle. Like it's a great addition. I mean, honestly, it's if you when you're changing nozzles, this is the only thing I use now.
And it works on their nozzles that they have, and then they it also works on your standard nozzles as far
Just gotta be
as
careful about rounded edges. If there's any
yeah.
rounded edges, it won't fit. But mostly, yeah, because it's got
Mu-
the big, the flip, right? You can pull
yeah.
it out and flip the side.
Well, yeah, it comes in the kit. It's the old gray piece that kind of clips into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's for the like your copper nozzles and stuff like that. You're not copper, your brass um nozzles, because that's what I'm running on mine.
Um, but yeah, no, that I mean the anything fitting on it, like a volcano or um, copperhead is I think actually another slice engineering
It
hot
is.
end, but those are the same. Like the volcano, all of those
Your stock,
nozzles are similar.
yeah, and the stockers from uh Creality, anything that's got a um rep wrap style audit.
Hmm.
But now, which is kind of funny, we start talking about Creality, and I know we're going to go probably a little long tonight, but you remember the K1?
Yeah, it's the one that they were talking about recently after the Bamboo came out with their X1 with the
Right.
carbon,
Yeah.
and it's their answer with the speed booster or whatever it
Hmm.
was.
Yeah. Well, they can't. Somebody didn't like the fact that their nozzles are proprietary. And they actually came out with a whole nother hot end replacement.
Oh, like
Um,
a quick swap. That's crazy.
yeah, that lets you do a quick swap with using rep wrap type nozzles. Um, and they came out with that. Um, and the thing is it's 100% supported by Creality now.
Oh, they said it's fine.
They said they gave them the CAD for it and stuff like that, and they let them sell it online.
Wow.
So, which is fine. And the thing is I was watching something the other day, kind of watching a review on how they set it up, stuff like that. It's a two wire replacement. Plug
Two
in
wire
plug in two wires,
or two
screw it together,
wired.
and you're done.
Okay.
But it reduces no speed. There's no speed degradation to the machine at all,
Really? So I mean, and the machine's already like lightning fast as it is. So
especially with that new high flow filament that they came out with.
right.
So, but that goes back to our filament conversations, which we said that we never go away from that.
It's
Um,
always. I mean, there's always something new that someone's working on.
right. And, the thing is peripherals are very, especially when it comes down to, kind of recycling them and stuff like that. Most of them are made out of metal, so most will be recycled. Most are made out of some sort of plastic or polymer that can be recycled, or reused. Don't get it wrong. A lot of stuff can be reused and rebuilt
Yeah.
to something that, you might need.
Yeah, the metals are easy to recycle because they just melt them back down, and all your plastic carbon buildup that you had on there, just kind of melts away whenever they recycle them. So yeah, I mean that's because I that was gonna be the thing that I was like, oh well, we're not really touching on sustainability too much, right? But that's one thing. I mean, honestly, all of this stuff is to make sure you're more sustainable, right?
Right.
You maintain your temperature so you're not wasting too much filament by start stopping it or anything like that. That's gonna save you time and money. Controlling your temperature so that whenever you don't have like moisture in your filament, that's gonna save you that whole spool. It's almost if you don't control the moisture or you just let it sit out, that whole spool that you bought is gonna be a waste as soon as you like leave it somewhere. Next time you put it on there, you're gonna have stringing and you're gonna have artifacting everywhere. So that's a waste, I would say, of money in that sense. And this is gonna save you
Right.
you know so
Makes sense.
sustainable in the sense of we're trying to almost become predictive, almost make sure that we don't have those issues that we would have had without taking care of our stuff. So yeah, I mean, it would even fall into the sense of preventative maintenance. You're getting like an aluminum, let's say you get an aluminum extruder and you're just trying to increase um the lifetime of that extruder there, or the gears, then you're just making sure that your printer stays working longer. I mean,
Right.
that's just preventive maintenance.
It's like PTFE tubes. PTFE tubes, those are preventive maintenance topics, in pieces. You know, that
Yes,
if they go bad, replace them, trim them back,
I have to trim my back every few months if I'm printing regularly.
and but the thing is, it's like make sure that you have spares. That's a spareable part. And since it is PTFE, it can be recycled with in your regular recycling. It's not going to hurt
Hmm.
anything. You can't really reuse it for anything, unless you absolutely need to, and but most of the time you're snipping off not even enough to matter.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, these things aren't one-time uses that we're talking about, so it's something that you'll probably keep with the printer for some time, or move to another printer. But yeah, it's these are sustainable, I would say, answers, especially if you talk about going cloud computing too.
Yeah,
Like that's you don't need as much hardware there. Like you can control. You don't need as many PCs or whatever if you have certain workstations you're setting up. So, yeah, it makes life easier. I mean, at
yeah.
the end of the day, that's all we're trying to do.
And, that's where it comes down to like you start really talking about, sustainability as a whole, you start getting into how do these, like you said, how do these things stack up?
Hmm.
You know, it's how it is at the end of the day is, make sure that one, everybody's getting the best bang for their buck, when it comes down to, doing and, participating in, additive manufacturing or just additive as a whole. Doesn't have to be manufacturing, don't have to be doing anything for profit. But it's still the same thing. It's still inside the STEM atmosphere. You start getting into like your like CNC and stuff like that, and you start really dealing with different type of peripherals there. I mean, you start dealing with like bits and fluids and stuff like that.
Vacuum tubes and things clog. You have to get like some type of machine that'll vibrate the tube as well. Like, yeah, there's a lot of extra pieces that also go. I mean, it's still manufacturing, right? That's subtractive, but I would say just as important. And I mean, it's good. It's good to get this taught in early on in I would say the life of a lot of people. Like if they can get into the STEM, the teenage years, then it's only gonna make them more conscious to cause and effect of some of the actions that industry and manufacturing kind of brings to uh, the world. Like we have to produce these things, we have to make them, we understand, but like a lot of if the more minds we have thinking on topics, the more ideas we end up coming up to solve these problems. Like the woman in China or Thailand. I think actually it's Indonesia. I think it is because they're working to help the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, so they're
Hmm.
nearby. So they're trying to help with uh, the coral. They're trying to grow. They've printed out of, I believe, terracotta clay. Um, they printed like starter um, spots or like hexes for um some of that the barnacles and some of the coral
Oh,
and some of
okay.
the stuff like that. So it's something that it's a place that is supposed to suggest or encourage
Hmm.
growth. And that's a print that came from terracotta, like clay pots, things like that. Like that's something that not everyone thought about, but it's because this person learned STEM at some point in their life, they were able to solve this problem we have with, I would say, I don't know if it's an endangered species, but it's a critical area because the Great Barrier Reefs were disappearing.
Right. Still are.
Yeah, they still are, and this is that helping grow them back. So, yeah.
And the thing is that's also where you start getting into like the concrete 3D printing, and stuff like that. And how that helps people when it comes down to the fact that you make affordable housing.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah, it doesn't sound very sustainable, but it is because it's sustainable housing. It's how can we, if we need to ever use these as temporary shelters, can we recycle that concrete back into something that is usable again? Yes, because concrete can be
I was gonna
broken
say,
down
yeah.
and ground down and, reused.
You just throw it back
So,
in the mix.
right. So, the thing is when people start doing things with the thought process of being sustainable, especially when it comes down to a STEM-based type of manufacturing, then, for me, it's 100% vote to support those guys. Go out there and search up these people, take a look at what they're doing. If they have a way for you to get involved, get involved. Um, or take an idea that they've got and, try it.
Yeah, I mean, why not? That's the quickest way to learn. I mean, for me, I was a very hands-on learner. I felt like I learned the best by doing. Um,
That's why I'm not good at
but
math.
yeah, and they'd give me the math, and I'd just go over to the corner, and I'd be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that doesn't make sense, and then just keep doing it, and then come back like, oh, this makes all sense to me. I have my own methods and everything for this to make sense in my head.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like I was never good at math, which is kind of funny because now look what I do now. But it is what it is. Sometimes you find that little light at the end of the tunnel that kind of shows up, and you go from being able to do things and understanding non-freedom units, imperial units, when you got to do the conversion to freedom units.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you know, it
Two
is
four
what it
two
is.
four. Right.
Right.
But yeah, no, these are things that you have to learn as you go. I mean, I don't know we got a little bit off of our peripherals talk, but um, all
Yeah.
these things are everything is necessarily an accessory to your growth or your overall product project or whatever you're doing. So we like to focus them, but it's all these peripherals or like if we thought about focusing STEM and 3D printing, I would say anything that you use for a demonstration, like a physics demonstration or anything like that, is a peripheral to your STEM activities, right?
Yeah.
So it's necessary. You need that to be able to show off kind of the physical property, right? Like the poisoner or was it the poisoner's teapot or something like that?
Yep.
Um, which just works. It's crazy how it works off of pressures and stuff like that to trick you into you know being able to put poison out instead of the tea that's cooking above it.
Right.
It's
And
crazy.
it's just, when you start talking about peripherals and stuff like that, you really start getting, there's a lot of things that we can go into. We just don't, honestly, don't, if we really wanted to, we would be
LEDs,
here.
man,
Yeah,
lights
we'd be
that you
here all
can.
night.
Yeah, honestly, it's almost a challenge. So,
Right.
but yeah, we'd have to probably cut it at some point. But yeah, lights that you need to see it in the dark. That's a peripheral. Like the enclosure itself to
Yeah.
or the shelf that holds up the printer.
Right. And you start dealing with that type of stuff. And, we'll have an episode later on where we start talking about like you notice we never talked about electronics. So
Yeah.
whenever we get, Ed back with us, we'll have that conversation about motherboards, MCUs, screens, EBBs if you really want to do CAN bus, which that's an experience.
You can set up
Um,
touch screens too. I had a touch screen on my last Ender for a while there. I don't have any screens now, but
yeah, I'm gonna disable all my screens, I think too. I don't have one on the
save you the money.
Voron. Um,
Power.
I think I'm gonna disable the one on the Enders. Because even the one printing the polycarbonate is or polypropylene
It, okay.
is Clipper. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a certain Clipper is just easier for us, and now it's like we've changed over and we've seen the light. We don't want to go back, but I think there's probably something at some point that's gonna take us over again. Clipper's just so nice.
Yeah, Clipper's just, now everybody's going to it. Now you can buy printers with Clipper pre-installed.
Yeah, exactly. They know what's up. They know what you're gonna
Like, for
do.
example, the K1 has Clipper pre-installed.
Yeah, they know.
Um,
They know what's up.
yeah, and that's not going to the Creality tab thing. But, it's here nor there. And I could
Reality
also,
Cloud.
yeah, if you really want to go to, some interesting ones, we can really talk about extruders, and I think that'll be a different topic all in itself. Um, because that's when we can start getting into do you, the best peripheral out there for for extruders is a direct drive. Is it a boat and tube setup?
Hmm.
Or do we really throw the curveball in there? Is it a pellet extruder?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another thing. You could do the pellet extruder. I mean, honestly, when you start getting into the specialties, there's a pancake bot, so there's a syringe extruder.
It's
Um,
chocolate.
yeah, so it makes chocolate. Like there's so much that can that you so many different types or things that add to that. Like the X tool has the quick exchange, not or whole. Hot end or tool head so that you can do a lot of quick changes, and I would say at that point the that quick exchange is the peripheral that probably most of us want.
Yep.
Switch to an engraver, switch to a CNC machine, or printing a printer, with the same machine. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. The ability to do dock and dedock. But, I think we've kind of hit the, I think, max time we really want to go. If you've all hanged around with us this long, thank you. We appreciate it. We definitely, I'm looking at the stats right now on the other side of me. We had 2,076. I think literally we just talked about crossing over the 2,000 all-time listeners. We're now at almost 2,100 listeners
Oh,
all time.
speeding up. Speeding up.
And more of y'all are coming from across the globe. Like I see, a bunch of y'all coming from Germany and different locations. So I know it's not just one of y'all. So, like we said here in Charleston, Guten Tag, y'all. And thank you, and thank you for coming, and we really do appreciate that. Uh, we appreciate y'all listening. Especially since for some of y'all, we're not your native language, but
Yeah, it's hard.
we definitely appreciate it more than you guys know. Um, we're in Germany a lot on occasion for work, so definitely appreciate that country and stuff like that, and definitely been around Europe a lot. Hopefully making around some other spots. So, but with that, let us know what y'all are working on. I see some of y'all in some areas that, I've never had an opportunity to travel to and definitely want to. So, let us know what y'all are working on. What type of stuff y'all got? What type of peripherals are different in your country of origin? I know a lot of stuff is coming out of mainland, China or Europe.
Yeah,
So
that's a good question.
it
Yeah.
might be the same for everybody, but if you're all working on a different type of filaments or different printing temperatures, let us know. We're kind of interested. Or, hey, if y'all have a convention, like a rep rap convention in your country, I know you have Form Next in Germany, so don't start with that one. Um, or let us know if you've been to Form Next. We're kind of interested. May one day make a trip out to Form Next. So y'all let us know what y'all got going on, and we'll definitely be willing to take a look, and kind of see what's going on. But I want to say thank you to everybody. So go check out everything else, all of our links. Vulcanar 3D, we're adding some more t-shirts and stuff like that there for you, along with some stuff over on Printed Heritage. And take a look at the blog. All right, y'all. I'm going to turn you over to John, and we'll have a good one.
Yeah, same thing as he's saying, check out all the sites, watch all the videos, listen to all the podcasts, do it. I promise. If you come and find me, I might give you $100. So let's see if you could prove it. It'd be nice, right? But yeah, no. Keep check on all those things. Like we kind of we'll talk until our faces turn blue on a lot of these topics. So like just kind of reaching out to us and kind of seeing if you have any questions, seeing if you have any ideas. I mean, seeing if you want to try something. We're always game. We're always open to a lot of those things. I mean, plans change, and we're always open to new opportunities. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware, and if you need anything, have any questions, have something that you want to bring to our attention, then you know how to reach us. You've got Vulcan R3D is probably the best way. It's going to email us. But yeah, stay tuned. Look at the website. Let me know what. Yeah, like what Nick was saying. If you've got peripherals we didn't mention, let us know. And yeah, stay tuned for the next few ones. All right.
So, all right, y'all. Y'all have a good one, and
All right.
we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.
Take care.
That's all for this episode of Tech at Lunch. Thanks for tuning in and joining us for this tech-filled lunch break. We hope you enjoy the show, and don't forget to subscribe on all channels. And also, you can find us on YouTube under Vulcanar Technology Solutions. And join us for our next episode, which gets published every Wednesday at 8 a.m. All right, y'all. Have a good one. We'll see you later.